Released in 1973 and immediately pulled from theaters and destroyed, with no official explanation from the studio, The Spook Who Sat by the Door is a no-holds-barred look at the idea of armed black liberation in America. Based on a novel of the same name by African-American author Sam Greenlee, The Spook Who Sat by the Door follows a young CIA agent who enters a government program to hire and train one black CIA agent to boost the president's approval rating. Unbeknownst to the CIA, this candidate was actually a black nationalist, and after succeeding in their program, uses what they taught him to train an army of black freedom fighters in Chicago. After these black freedom fighters launch a series of attacks against property, the government retaliates by sending in the National Guard, culminating in somebody getting shot and killed. This results in an all-out riot. The movie culminates with the struggle moving to multiple cities and the government sending in all branches of the military in response. While this movie has long been a cult classic in Black America and amongst socialist and other liberation-minded circles, with the political climate more and more starting to mirror that of the 1960s and 70s, and Donald Trump threatening to send the military into multiple American cities, as well as the recent passing of black liberation icon Assata Shakur, there's perhaps no better time for America at large to familiarize themselves with this vital piece of filmmaking. If we're going to talk about this movie, we have to start with the context of the time in which it was released. And for that, I'll defer to this clip from USA Today columnist DeWay Wickham.
To fully appreciate this movie, you have to understand the context of the times in which it was made. Early 1970s, coming out of the 1960s, the civil rights struggle, the struggle that produced the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and the Fair Housing Act of 1968. There was a violent reaction in white America, some parts of white America, to this progress that we experienced. And that reaction, coupled with the transition from Martin Luther King and Whitney Young to civil rights leaders who lost their lives during that time, to H. Rap Brown and Stokely Carmichael, black activists who had no stomach for nonviolence, to someone like Leroy Jones, who made the transition from Leroy Jones the poet to Amari Baraka, the black activist, black nationalist, the man who wrote, "What time is it?" and then answered, "It's nation time."
It was into this climate of a burgeoning black nationalist movement, and less than 6 months removed from Assata Shakur's fateful encounter with police on the Jersey Turnpike, one which would lead to her ultimate conviction, imprisonment, escape, and exile to Cuba, that this movie was released into theaters. And despite a limited release, it was something of an overnight success amongst black Americans. Word of mouth traveled fast. People said that you've got to go check this out. You see, the thing is that it's not often that any piece of black liberation fiction made it into mainstream media, let alone one that holds nothing back like this. Now, it's important to note that The Spook Who Sat by the Door is not an unabashed endorsement of armed liberation. The problem is that to some people, it could be seen as such, and to the American government, that was a scary thought.
This movie had a message that in the early 1970s scared the hell out of white folks. It was a message that said to black people, you can resist, you can respond, you need not just simply take it on one cheek and turn the other cheek. We must find an aggressive way to respond to our oppression. The movie's aggression was that of violence. And it is not anything that Sam Greenlee advocated in a real world fashion. He held this out in a fictional way as a response to white oppression. He understood, however, that this was not a real option, but he wanted to present in his book and in the movie a context in which those who lived that life of oppression in the ghetto could connect with.
I mentioned at the beginning of this video that this movie did not last long in theaters before the studio pulled it and destroyed all known copies of it. Most people, including the original author, think that the FBI was behind this, that it was just simply too subversive of a film for them to allow into distribution, and they got rid of it. Not every copy was destroyed, however, and bootlegged copies remained and were traded around on VHS for years, before a 35mm copy was eventually rediscovered and the film restored, and in 2012, Congress added it to the National Film Registry. Liberatory movements are used to censorship, so it's no surprise that people were able to keep this piece of media around despite the government's best efforts. The trading around of bootleg VHSs to keep this movie alive for years is reminiscent of other underground communication practices present in plenty of liberatory movements. whether that's the unofficial distribution of things like zines and other paper media, or something like an underground radio station. This is mirrored in a scene from the movie where the freedom fighters take over a local radio station and broadcast a message to the public.
Hey, old bean. And you too, baby. This is Uncle Tom, Commander-in-Chief of your Black Freedom Fighters of North America, bringing you the latest news from your fighting black underground. Hang on, brothers and sisters. Liberation is near. In just a few minutes, at precisely 3 o'clock, we will demolish the lavish offices of the mayor of White Chicago. 'Cause we don't have a mayor, even if they do count our votes several times to elect him every 4 years. Remember, brothers, in spite of the lies about an assassination attempt on the mayor, which will appear in the white press, that this time we blew the mayor's office at night when he was at home to announce the beginning of our war of liberation.
Censorship is hot on a lot of minds right now, with Trump's FCC chair recently having leaned on ABC to at least temporarily cancel the Jimmy Kimmel show. And it had a lot of people rightfully up in arms. It's especially scary when this is done in the advancement of a fascist movement, like is the case with Donald Trump. But it's extremely important to recognize that it is by no means a unique thing in our country's history for the government to have used censorship to get rid of things that they find too subversive. Whether it's the spook who sat by the door, the Jimmy Kimmel show, or things like the Hunter Biden laptop being suppressed under the Joe Biden administration. Another interesting thing about this movie is that it does not just present one perspective on Black liberation. Far from it, actually. The characters on display here represent the entire spectrum of Black liberatory philosophy at the time. One interesting scene features the main character talking to one of his freedom fighters, and he learns a bit from him, let's just say.
The only thing about it is I can't have the job connected with the Cobras.
How are you gonna do that?
We use red beans, Benny Rooster, Paul Monte, JT, Johnny, and Tom. And you lead the team.
All the yellow niggas, right? Look, man, I am tired of that. I am not passing. I am black. Do you hear me, man? Do you understand? I am black. I'm a nigga. You understand me? I was born black. I live black. And I'm gonna die probably because I'm black. Because some cracker that knows I'm black better than you, nigga, is probably gonna put a bullet in the back of my head.
It's for reasons like this, and not just the explicit portrayal of Black liberation, that this movie has had such an enduring legacy in the Black community. It's important now that I take a moment to add a little bit of context and talk about the title of this movie, The Spook Who Sat by the Door. You see, it has a double or a triple meaning. One is the slur for Black people, spook, and the idea that the spook who sat by the door is somebody who a company hires one Black person and sits them by the door, and they're a model Black person so that everybody who walks through their business can see that they're a good upstanding company that hires Black people, even though they really have no intentions of ever letting Black people really rise up through their company. But you also have the double meaning that the spook in this case was literally a CIA spook. And there is a third meaning that the entire story here represents the great fear of white America, the uprising of Black Americans culminating in violent conflict. So you have three meanings in the title here. So now I want to show a clip of late rapper and entrepreneur Nipsey Hussle talking about what this movie and the book meant to him.
And if anybody that ain't seen that book, seen that movie or read the book, it's about a gang member from Chicago who, presented himself in a way. He never caught no cases. He had a clean cut look, and he infiltrated the CIA.
Yep.
And he became educated and basically he used their agenda, which was to have a token in the CIA for political reasons. We gonna speak blunt. Mm-hmm. He used it against him. And I think that in terms of hip hop, you think of the message that they embrace, I feel parallel with, like, you know what I mean? The power structure. I don't mean the culture of hip hop, but the power structure of music. They got prescribed personas they expect from us. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like the way he used their intention against him was one of my underlying strategies. You know what I'm saying?
You got to put the medicine in the candy. 100%. And what's interesting about that book, all his people used to call him Uncle Tom and a coon,
you know what I'm saying?
Sellout.
Yeah.
But he was there working for them the whole time.
Yeah, and he I don't want to go blow nothing up like he did in the movie, you know what I mean? But just in terms of being able to mobilize his homies to a hard cause, you know?
You see, there's a lot of different reasons that people like this movie and a lot of different things that people can take away from it. Hopefully this first section of the video has told you a little bit about the background of this film and why it matters. In the next part of the video, I want to go into how this film fits into today's context and what it sort of means to me in this moment. But first, I want to take just a moment to plug myself and my channel. I mostly do this full time. I work on a little bit of other stuff, but I'm really trying to support myself making videos. So if you want to help me do that, you can do so on my Patreon. That's patreon.com/AWILLROTH. And I'm also announcing in this video that in addition to my normal support tiers, I am going to do a new tier, a $2 tier, where this video is the first in a series of monthly videos, a film club of sorts. And if you join that $2 tier on my Patreon, you'll be invited to an exclusive Discord chat where we talk about the movies ahead of the release of the videos and vote on what movies we'll do in future videos. So if that appeals to you at all, consider that. And if you want to look out for other videos like this one today, the future film club videos, make sure to click subscribe on the channel so that you can get notified when they come out. All right, let's get back to The Spook Who Sat by the Door and what context we could look at it in today. Now, you could look at it through the same lens as always, as specifically a piece of Black liberation fiction, and it would make perfect sense because that struggle still exists in America to this day. But I also think that we can take a bigger picture look at this and treat it as a general liberatory piece of fiction, or even specifically a socialist piece of fiction. Now, Black nationalism and socialism aren't a perfect one-for-one, but if you ask me, the two are mostly synonymous when you cut through it all. And for that, I look to a quote from Assata Shakur. She said that there was not a single liberation movement she could find in Africa that was not fighting for socialism, and in fact, she could not find a single liberation movement across all of the world that was fighting for capital. If you ask me, these overtly socialist leanings come out very clearly in this scene right here.
We have to maintain law and order, or we might as well be back in the jungles.
The ghetto is a jungle, always has been. Understand? You cannot cage people like animals and not expect them to fight back someday. It has always been an army occupation here, with police badges and uniforms. Huh? You and me, a cop and a social worker, we are keepers of this goddamn zoo.
The streets have to be safe.
Safe for who? You're here to protect property, not lives.
Viewed through a socialist lens, this movie could represent the greatest fear or even greatest desire of somebody like Donald Trump, given his continued demonization of various groups within the United States and stated intention to send the military out into various U.S. cities. It's not hard to see something like this movie playing out in real life in the near future. That's a worst case scenario, but is it something somebody like Donald Trump would want? Well, if you ask me, it lays the perfect groundwork for fascists to up the fascism. An uprising of any sort gives them the political cover to indulge in their worst impulses. I think that this movie is exactly the type of thing that somebody like Donald Trump would not want us watching right now, but it may be the exact type of thing he's taking inspiration from. And it's for reasons like that that I think it's more important than ever that everybody has this movie in their lexicon.